Hello, welcome to the September 16th Village Council meeting for the Village of Yellow Springs. I'll be standing in for your regular host, Kevin Stokes, who's out today. And I guess we'll start with a roll call.
Indeed. DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Hausch.
I'm here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Also present are Finance Director Michele Robinson, Solicitor Amy Blankenship, Planning and Zoning Administrator Meg Leatherman, and Village Manager Johnny Burns.
Okay. Do we need to do anything about the people who aren't here?
Yes, you're absolutely correct, and I thank you for that. Carmen Brown is out on a family matter, and Kevin Stokes is out on a family matter, I guess we could say. And we do need to make a motion to excuse both of them from the meeting. Thank you.
So moved to excuse Councilman Stoke and Councilperson Brown.
Second.
Can we just do an all in favor? Okay.
Indeed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with a swearing in, and then we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. So, Dino, if you don't mind coming up. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I'm doing fine. Excellent.
Okay, put your hand on the Bible. Okay. I guess I read stuff and then you read it back, okay? This is my first time doing this, okay? I solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and will obey the laws of the United States
and of the state of
and
Ohio,
of the state of Ohio,
that I will in all respects
that I will in all aspects
observe the provisions of the Charter and the ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of...
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of BZA.
All right. And I think now I give you this pin. You have pins probably, but you can have another one, and then that's all, right? Congratulations.
You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right, so the next up is announcements. Brian, you got some announcements?
I do. I wouldn't want to disappoint, but I did want to start with Rebecca, is someone speaking from your group?
MJ Dodson.
Oh, great.
She's the brains, I'm the booty.
All right. Oh, come on up,
She
MJ.
just asked me to talk.
Great. Glad you could be here.
Yeah, we'd like to encourage you to endorse the Citizens Not Politicians Issue 1 constitutional amendment. In the process of collecting signatures to get it on the ballot and doing voter education right now, it seems there's just widespread support. Not only Yellow Springs, people who from their attire you would think don't even approach them. By golly, do this. The ballot language is such that I, who have worked for months on this, would not be certain that it was what I had worked on. So endorsements from trusted groups like yourselves can help people say, oh, this is still good. So, we'd like to encourage you to do that. A little chuckle aside, I looked at the endorsements, and there's nothing after W in the list.
Ooh.
So Yellow Springs would be last, and perhaps a little more prominent.
And we want to
So-
save the best for that.
Yes,
so,
we do. So-
yeah, and we appreciate what you submitted in the packet, and we'll actually, when we get to petitions
Yeah.
and communications, we'll
That's
talk
fine.
about bringing that back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your great work. So I guess I'll mention this nice glass trophy I have right here is our recognition for being one of the 9 honorees for Dayton's Best Places to Work. This was something that Johnny thought about. Yeah, pretty cool. That meant we were in the, there you go. Yeah, why not? That meant we were in the upper quartile for medium companies, sized 50 to 100, I think. And this is an idea that our village manager, Johnny Burns, had because it involves surveying your team, getting lots of good feedback, Unfortunately, we couldn't pay for the $2,500 full package, but we got some good feedback with what was free, and it was really nice to also be with one of our main partners, Choice One, who was recognized at that event as well. All right. So then, otherwise, a few things I'll rattle off. I got to go see the Honda LG plant today. We're talking about bringing in, or they're talking about bringing in 2,500 jobs. It's 30 minutes away, and this ties into some of the things that we hope around economic development, that we can attract some of those smaller satellite businesses, and also have people that want to live, work, and play here. I did want to say last time I mentioned that the new Yellow Springs Development Corporation Director, Amy Lowe, was going to attend this meeting. She's under the weather, so we'll see her next time. Very cool news. Today I heard that Nippers Corner Market is now one of our 3 public restrooms, and that can be shared with folks. So besides the John Bryan Center right here and the train station where the chamber is, excited to hear that Nippers is now not requiring purchase to share that bathroom. A reminder that we have the Regional Bikeways Committee attending Yellow Springs in their quarterly meeting on October 18th. Anyone could join. We're going to talk about all the great things we've done around walking and biking infrastructure. That starts at 11:30 at Coactive, and then we're going to walk our lovely multimodal hike-bike trail that the village secured $2 million with no match, no taxpayer dollars to build. And I'm seeing people use it all the time. I don't know if Ben, caught up on your emails, but there's a picture we'll show at some point of people using that trail. And then I wanted to mention Saturday, for those of you that might have missed it, we celebrated Wheeling Gaunt Day at the bronze statue. Got to hear all the great work that Nadia Malarkey and her team are doing around landscaping. And what was really neat was Wilberforce last year honored Wheeling Gaunt with an honorary diploma. So part of the ceremony was to gown him, and there's some really nice pictures online where you can check that out. And I think the only other thing I wanted to mention is for those of you that haven't seen some of the activities that Yellow Springers are organizing around supporting Springfield, our neighbors who I think need a lot of support right now, I want to recognize Steve McQueen, who got about 30 Yellow Springers together to go out to a Haitian restaurant. Yeah, a few people in the crowd were there. And really nice, and I just want to encourage more of that activity. Excuse me. I was talking to Judith Hempfling, school board president. She mentioned that maybe there might be some interest in some of our local groups, like the 365 Project, the Beloved Community Initiative, in thinking about other things that we can do to support the community and also elected officials that I think are doing a good job. Okay, that's what I got.
Cool. Any other announcements?
She had one. There was another one right there.
Another one here? Okay.
Could I add to your comments about Springfield?
Sure. Come on up to the mic, okay?
We want to make sure everyone hears you.
Right there. I received an email this afternoon forwarded from the Clark County Democratic Party. They're being intimidated by certain groups, and they have a meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, 6 to 8, and they were encouraging people to come to just be there and have American flags and just be there.
Great.
So,
Thanks for sharing that.
All right.
I do go one. Never Too Early Street Fair is October 12th. It's coming up. It'll be right around the corner.
All right.
Okay, that's all on the announcements? There's something else? Okay. All right, next up is the consent agenda. I forget how this works. Am I supposed to ask for a motion?
For each of them
Okay,
separately,
let's
yes.
start with a motion on minutes for the September 3rd regular meeting.
I'll move to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Okay.
All
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Are
great.
you in favor?
Yeah, aye. Okay, and then the credit card statement for August, could I get a motion for that?
I move to approve the credit card statement for August.
And I'll second.
Great. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. I guess I have to vote, otherwise we don't have enough votes.
That's true.
Okay, I'll be voting. All right. The next up is the review of the agenda. Are there any questions, additions, subtractions on the review of the agenda?
I might just mention that, once again, I think we under budgeted on the LIHTC discussion, so.
Okay.
So I think we should.
Under budgeted from a time perspective?
Correct.
Got it, okay. Just checking.
Yeah, I guess that's
making
loaded
sure.
wording, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, all right. I'll
All
think
right,
about that.
so then I'm assuming we're good on the agenda? Okay. All right, so next up is petitions and communications. Brian, would you mind reading those?
Yes, we have two of those. One is from Mitzie Miller, who's here today, and highlighting the importance of making accommodations for folks with differing abilities, especially around participating in our council meetings. I want to say, I think that resonates with all of us, and so thanks for that. And secondly, we kind of already addressed the request for a resolution to support issue 1. And I think from Judy's recommendation, it sounded like this would be the time to send a signal that we would like to bring a resolution back. So I support that.
Yeah,
I do
I
as well.
support that too.
Okay.
Okay, so if we could bring it back the next time, it'll be on the agenda at the next meeting. Okay, so now we're moving on to public hearings and legislation. Do I have to do the, don't read the whole thing or something?
No, because all you've got is one lonely resolution, that's it.
Okay. Can you read that one, I guess?
I will.
Okay.
This is Resolution 2024-60. It's accepting amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Okay, so then can I get a motion to consider that? Is that what I do? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and now we talk about it, I think.
Yep.
Who's coming up? Is that you, Michele?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So July 1st of this year, the council approved the tax budget that I submitted to Greene County to the Budget Commission, and therefore I'm requesting now for a resolution to accept the amounts and rates that were determined by the Budget Commission. And this authorizes the necessary tax levies and certifies them to the county auditor.
The only question I had is just, it seems like redundant. Like
It
we
is.
just okay, it's just like you're totally sure, and I think we're sure, I guess. So I don't, does anyone else have a
Well, I
question?
mean, we have a finance committee to make sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I know it's just one of the boxes we have to check.
Yep.
So, but I thought it was complete, and maybe to add for folks that don't know, in October is when we start talking about the budget, so we'll get a lot more in depth as to what those numbers mean. And then since I know you're probably going to get out of here, I wanted to thank you for putting together the numbers about the transient guest lodging tax.
No problem.
Pretty impressive. $90,000 a year to build sidewalks and do other cool stuff. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Michele?
I don't have any.
Okay, so can we just do an all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, here we go. I think we've arrived at citizen concerns. If you're a regular listener, you know we've gotten here very, very fast. I take full credit.
Thank you.
So, yeah, this is a time where anybody has anything that's not on the agenda can come up and speak. So are there any citizen concerns? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Marion Stewart. I live at 352 Dayton Street. I also work for Faith in Public Life, an advocacy organization here in Ohio. We're very concerned about the Springfield issue. I know you just brought that up. In addition to things we're planning, like a prayer vigil on Thursday and a State House rally on Saturday late afternoon, I think it would be most appropriate for Yellow Springs Village Council to draft and issue a proclamation in support of Springfield City Council. I've requested the mayor write a proclamation. I know the Mayor's Alliance of Larger Cities just issued one today, but I think it would be just so appropriate for Yellow Springs to issue one, as we are their next door neighbor and we kind of share Young's Dairy, right? But I think we need to get that out as soon as possible in as strong as language, a support language as we can, not just council to council, citizens to citizens, but also to all residents and the employers who are working with them. There's stress everywhere. Our colleges over there are also under stress. I spoke with their chaplain today. It's just off the scale. So anything you can do fast, soon, now to show official support, even if that's just a piece of paper, I think that would be a very strong statement. As human beings, we're taught to love our neighbor. I think collectively, as a village, as a city, we can certainly support each other that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And the mayor's group that issued a proclamation?
It's the Mayor's Alliance.
Mayor's Alliance, okay, thank you.
I believe Springfield might be a member of that, and they worked with the mayor of Springfield. The Dayton mayor also had a meeting with the Springfield mayor today, and I'm sure that's not the first one. But Yellow Springs doesn't quite make that cutoff for the 30 largest municipalities, but I think as the next door neighbor, we should lead the way and be right there on it. And I think we should cut any red tape that we have to make that happen, because it's a now thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, do you all agree with that? I mean, that sounds good to me. Is there a thing that we can do relatively easily, or is it like, it's got to be at the next meeting?
October 7th, yeah.
Okay.
It's because we don't do proclamations, we do resolutions. And
Resolutions,
got to
yeah.
write it and pass it.
Okay.
If you don't have time in the next
Okay.
hour unless someone...
Okay. So we'll work on getting something for the next council packet, but I think there's support.
And could we, if we do agree to have the meeting on September 25th, could we add it to that agenda at the beginning?
I don't see why not.
Okay. So that means we could do it next week. So, okay.
Okay. Are there any other citizen concerns? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Mitzie Miller. During the budget session in October, I'd like to advocate for more money being set aside for the purchase of speed reduction devices that will reduce the speed of vehicles on our streets and roads. Let's make safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and animals and vehicles a stronger priority in the next year. Approving vendor speed bumps and asphalt speed bumps have proven to slow down speeders. Please consider high-traffic areas like Quarry, Fairfield, Dayton, West Limestone, and Xenia, Polecat, and Spillane. Maybe grant money can also be sought out to offset the costs. I want to thank you and thank the village for what they have done already in the last, especially in the last year, to try to curb some of the speeding going on in the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mitzi. And that is a reminder. What's the date of the meeting, Judy? Is it October 25th when council should have our recommendations for the budget?
Sure. You're talking about budget meetings?
Right, because
At
it
this
was the
point?
first one that we were supposed to bring our
Or 17th.
17th. Okay. Yep, that makes more sense.
Okay. Any other citizen concerns? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to follow up Mitzi. I'm Jason Levesque, Fairfield Pike. I found out I was known as the speed bump guy recently. I've kind of been out of the conversation for a while because I started full-time school, opened up a business here in Yellow Springs, have 3 kids, own another business in Kettering, so I'm pretty busy. I just learned today that there was a budget issue with doing the sidewalks from the grant. So that was sad to hear. I get a lot of harassment for the speed bump. I've been in contact with Paige a lot about it. People drive past my house all hours of the night honking because of the speed bump. People have yelled and cussed at my kids, my wife. People cut through the gravel that goes around the speed bump to go around the speed bump. They go through my neighbor's yard across the street to go around the speed bump. I like the speed bump. It's not a bad one. I can go 25 miles per hour over it and not feel a thing. I know that people have issues with the other ones, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm with Mitzie. I think when we go into this budget discussion coming up, we've got to think about other things as well. The speed bump's great, but Brian, you've talked about the speed cameras in the past. If we could get those, and I know it takes from the tax money or whatever we get, but those speed cameras I think is a good thing again to think about, just because, hey, the more people we're ticketing, the more money we have for sidewalks. I'd love to have a sidewalk at least on one side out there, because, you know, my kids should be able to ride their bike in a community like this. So I do appreciate everything that's gone on and how much you guys have fought for it. I understand there's a budget, but less than a mile away from our house, someone lost their life last year. And I don't think a budget cut or a budget is worth anyone else's life. So that's all I got to say. Thank you guys very much for all you do. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the village. And peace be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizen concerns?
Jason Bailey, Yellow Springs Red. Since you guys are talking about budget, I was wondering if you guys could consider doing something with Ellis Pond. Think about that, dredging it or whatever you can do to get that usable. It's good for the first 3 months of the summer, spring into the summer, but then after that it's not usable. So if you could ponder that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other citizen concerns? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Riley Dixon. I live at 322 Union Street. I work for the paper, and I'm a member of the Environmental Commission. That's why I'm here. I guess I just kind of wanted to steal counsel for what the Environmental Commission is volleying into your court. That is a no idling ordinance proposal. We've talked about this for a number of years now at the commission, and in looking at similar ordinances throughout the country and the state even, we're suggesting that we'd like the village to ordain that a vehicle not idle for more than 5 minutes in a 60-minute period, with a number of provisions. So hopefully this shows up in your next packet for the October 6th or 7th meeting. And I would love to talk about it more then. So that's all.
And Riley, have you've talked to our manager and police chief?
I had talked to Chief Burge briefly in the past, but I sent a query out to you and Chief Burge recently, but I would love to set up a meeting to maybe hash out some of the logistics, specifically enforcement. That's something the commission has talked about at length, not wanting this to be a punitive type of law, more as like a self-regulating type of thing. So discouraging people from idling with signage and a slight cultural shift in the village, not so much wagging the book of law in front of somebody's face with a threat of like a misdemeanor or something like that. I certainly don't want to send anybody through the criminal justice system for sitting in a car when it's cold outside. I would, however, like to discourage that person and maybe have them consider the environmental impacts of such an action. And so I think signage would be a good use of Environmental Commission money, as well as perhaps in the budget for the village. So, again, so many municipalities around the country, in Ohio even, have enacted such a thing. This summer is the warmest on record. Next summer is going to be even warmer. The summer after that's going to be even hotter. And so much of carbon emissions, I think, according to the EPA, the bulk of carbon emissions come from transportation. And that's not, So, I think the village would do well to follow in the footsteps of other municipalities that have enacted a similar kind of ordinance. So, I've never written a law before, so this is kind of new territory, but it's
Scintillating, yes.
Can't wait. So anyway, this is all to say, I tried to put it in this week's packet, but I was too late. Sorry, fellow commissioners, and sorry, council members and Judy. But hopefully this will appear, the proposal will appear in your next packet, and then I would love to hear what council would have to say at that point. And then hopefully Johnny and I and Paige can hash out some details. So, thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, are there any other citizen concerns? Okay, hearing none or seeing none, we'll keep moving then. Okay, so the next thing up on the agenda is special reports. The first is the presentation of the projection mapping of murals.
Yeah, that's me.
Hey.
Hi, hello, council. My name is Justin Herman, village resident, animator, graphic designer, 25-year professional creative. What I'm proposing is to do a projection mapped mural tour of the murals of the village. I almost encourage you to turn around and look at the screen. Oh, you can see it. Great. This is important to me on a lot of levels. I grew up in Greene County for the first 26 years of my life. I lived in Beaver Creek and felt that one of the defining factors of this village and what made it special to me and my family was that artists were genuinely encouraged here. There was culture galvanized around them, whereas growing up for me in Beaver Creek, I felt like I was kind of hammered into conformity. So my father would take me here. He worked at Central State. He would take me here, and this is where I felt like I could be an artist, where I was understood. So in part of my moving back 3 years ago, that was kind of my mission, because one of the things that I think is really special about this community is that we have some amazing artists. And so basically, this is the first thing of many things that I'm trying to think of to do just that, build some community and some cachet around Yellow Springs artists, help them be more financially successful, help them be more noticeable. So this is one of the things I've taken to doing. And if you want to go to the next slide, Ben. The way it works is basically, I take a projector, an attachment, I have 4 of these setups, and I scan the murals and then basically paint them in like paint and fill with light and motion. You can drop video in there, whatever. And it's really something else. I've never seen it not invoke wonder and invoke a sense of, oh, something is outside of my understanding of what's possible. Creatively speaking, like no one's seen a mural like this. So my hope is to use this just as a way to highlight the amazing murals that we have and the amazing muralists and artists that we have, give them, something shareable, something that will maybe garner to them some, online traction. Again, some more cachet. So our plan is to do this every Friday night, starting with the second, third, and fourth Fridays in October. But like I said, this is something I hope to do a lot of, and hopefully this is just the first step. Like I said, I've had great success so far. So my plan is to, in speaking with Carmen, I'll bring sound and set up sound as well. And there'll be some like local food vendors. And I've been doing, around my projection mapping, I have been, in that same spirit, inviting local musicians and producers to come up and kind of play as well. So, it covers a lot of bases. It galvanizes the creative community here. It gives the artisans of these murals like a kind of something to rally themselves around, and just something cool for us all to go do together for free.
And did I miss where you're thinking would happen?
So we're thinking about, that's why I mock these up, is we're thinking about doing it, or starting it, in the alley, in Keith's Alley, and doing just one mural every time. You know, potentially maybe there could be a closing party with all of them lit up, because I do have enough. I have 4 setups. Like everything you're seeing here is just, these are all actually animated mock-ups. If you go to the next slide, these are examples of every one but the one on the top left are ones that I've already done here in the village. You know, we have Ha Ha Pizza, the amphitheater last year before it was kind of closed down, and then that's Rose and Sal's in the middle. But it's something that people really seem to be excited about, and something I want to do more of. And I don't need any money just to go ahead and do it. Yeah, just wanted to.
I always like how that sounds. Yeah.
You know, not asking for much. That being said, though, if it becomes something that's like, wow, this is something that we want to continue for our village and make them more permanent installations, we can talk about that too, because they're not doing me any good sitting in my, sitting in my house.
Great.
Yeah. Any examples? Or any questions?
No, it sounds cool. It makes me think about the, I guess I could have done it in announcements, but there's the Blink Cincinnati stuff that'll be coming up in October, and I don't know, it's cool to see unique kind of art, so thanks for sharing it with us.
Yeah, no doubt. They've kind of, Blink has reached out to me a little bit because they don't do it. I'm the only one that I know that's doing murals. Everybody else is like, hey, let's turn this building into like, a big image you can see from far away. I found a lot of fun in these murals because it's collaborative. That's another thing about the Yellow Springs creative community, to me, has always felt collaborative. Whereas in Dayton, when there's minimal resources, it becomes competitive and, no one wants to work together. So that's not us.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, the next up on the special reports is the Tecumseh Land Trust Annual Report. Michele, come on up.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to come give our annual report. So just overall picture of Tecumseh Land Trust, we are up to 229 properties under conservation easement, totaling over 37,000 acres. And within that, about 62 stream miles have been protected. We have brought in about $35 million to the local economy through the state and federal funding programs. So making a big impact across our service area, which is all of Clark, all of Greene counties, and surrounding counties.
And Michele, just on that point, so the $35 million is in terms of money for the easements?
To purchase the conservation easements from private landowners. Yep.
Gotcha.
And if you didn't see us on the news last week, we had a great wetland restoration ribbon cutting event. It was super fun. About 200 people came out to look at our first H2 Ohio project, which is a wetland restoration project or program that has now become statewide. We were one of the first projects when it became statewide, so we're really proud of that. We are building on that program in terms of getting more wetland restoration programs on a headwater stream of the Little Miami River before it goes into Clifton Gorge. So should have great impacts on our water quality here in Yellow Springs. So super excited about that, and we'll report more as those projects close. We have about 30 projects in process, so meaning they're in some stages of closing a conservation easement. Nothing has really changed in Miami Township, so those numbers stay true to the last time I presented. Same as within the village of Yellow Springs. Those are the properties that we have easements on within your jurisdiction. Nothing's really changed there. We are always happy to be involved in the community doing outreach events. So this year we did Earth Day activities. I forgot to mention on that list that we hosted the Yellow Springs Garden Tour, which was really fun. We had some great gardens on that tour if you didn't participate in that. Still involved in Yellow Springs Habitat. And then we're doing about 2 work days on Glass Farm. It's about all we have for capacity right now. I hope to increase that, but we did one during Earth Day. We will have another one on October 27th, which is Make a Difference Day. So right now, that's kind of what we're able to do, but do hope to increase that. The neighbors there are doing a fantastic job with keeping up with the restoration efforts at Glass Farm, and I know they would like to have our help again, so that is our goal. In terms of educational efforts, we're still focusing in on conservation practices and helping landowners connect with the resources that are available to them to get good conservation on their land. But this year, thanks to a grant from the American Farmland Trust, we have included succession and estate planning efforts. So if you're not aware, in the United States, about 300 million acres of land is set to change hands in the next 2 decades. That's huge. So we are working on the ground floor with the American Farmland Trust to kind of help make those efforts go smoothly and those transfers go smoothly. Just to do, thank you, Judy. On the Jacoby Greenbelt grant that we received through the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, which you all were a partner on. That grant did close on August 31st. So nothing new to report on the conservation practices part of that grant. As you may remember, we were awarded money to help landowners do water quality improvements in the Yellow Springs Creek and Jacoby Creek watersheds. All of that money was spent early on. It was very popular, so that's really exciting. We were happy to help 12 landowners implement conservation practices, including cover crops, fencing, pasture management, invasive species removal, and grass waterways. So if we have the opportunity to do something similar, we will, because it was really popular despite our local partner at NRCS telling us we would never spend all that money, but we did. The conservation easement side of that part of the grant was not as successful, unfortunately. We were only able to get 3 properties under conservation easement in the grant period, and that was just because of a slowdown at the federal government, which was surprising to us because it's a program that we use regularly. Why it being part of this regional conservation partnership program, it became more cumbersome, we don't know. But we were awarded the 3 grants. You can see them in the light kind of green properties. So none of them were within your priority areas, which is why we didn't ever come to you for matching money. But they totaled 250 acres, so we're excited about that. And since this grant has been closed out, I'd like to just kind of jump into the Jacoby Greenbelt status as we know it, some updates, and the Green Space Fund. I sent all of you a history of the Green Space Fund and the Jacoby Greenbelt, so I'm not going to go into all the details, but for those of you who don't know, the Jacoby Greenbelt was identified early on in this community. We have had a history of land preservation here starting in the early 1960s. The Greenbelt itself was identified in the first comprehensive plan of Yellow Springs in the late 1960s. The Green Space Fund started in the 70s, and since that time, as you all know, we have used that money to purchase properties, protect them, and resell them, or purchase conservation easements. The Green Space Fund was instrumental in the Whitehall auction when it went to auction in 1999, and then again at the Arnovitz auction in 2017, which was the impetus for that federal grant that I just talked about, where you all committed the Green Space Fund to be matching funds for 5 years. So now that we are past our grant period, I just want to give you a quick update of what we know, what's going on in the Yellow Springs Greenbelt. So that is the current greenbelt that's in the land use plan. The dark green properties are ones that have been protected. The light green properties are ones that have been identified for protection but have not been protected. And the property in red is the one that we're concerned about because we understand the family would like to sell that property before the end of the year. You can see that it is outside of your urban service boundary, and it is one that has been identified in your land use plan since the beginning. Judy, if you want to go to the next slide. More particulars about that property. Sorry, that wasn't Judy. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I was happy to take the credit, but I started feeling guilty.
This is a 184-acre property. Notably, it has 1,800 feet of the Jacoby Creek going through it. has 16 acres of woods, and important for development potential, it has 5,800 feet of road frontage across 2 roads. And I say that because if you're not familiar with Miami Township zoning, the minimum is 3 acres and 300 feet of frontage. So that's quite a potential there. You guys are often interested in the time of travel, so I included some maps here. You can see that this property is just west of your capture zone boundary. It is not actually within your time of travel, but just west of it. We did consult with a civil engineering company to kind of try to get a sense of what does that mean for the Jacoby Creek. And they said that for every 3-acre lot, you should consider that it would be an increase of 30% impervious surface. So if we're talking about, with that amount of road frontage, 14 to 17 lots possible, with 30% on each lot of impervious surface, that's quite an impact to Jacoby Creek in terms of runoff. And next slide. And we don't know what the outcome's going to be. Sorry, I don't have a crystal ball. This is a family that we've tried to work with for many, many decades. But just to say that all options are on the table. We know the family has auctioned off 2 other properties last month. Both properties went for about $14,000 an acre. This is just a picture, an aerial picture of a development that has happened in the township with similar amount of road frontage. Not trying to say that the sky is falling, just trying to give you a visual of what Dayton Yellow Springs Road could look like coming into the village of Yellow Springs. So again, the estimate is 14 to 17 lots off the frontage that could be anywhere from 3 to 10 acres in size, because with 184 acres, they can support 10-acre lots. All of this is dependent on township zoning and approval from Greene County, and I've been working with Greene County to get a realistic idea of what this might look like, and they just haven't had time to get back to me with any exact numbers. But so the other thing I want to add is I just found out today that there's another property within the priority properties identified by the village that is likely to go to sale as well. So I think that just speaks to that farmland's going to, turn over. The average age of a farmer in Ohio is 58. So we are looking at a huge transfer of land in the next few years. So that brings me to my request. I know that there are some issues with having a green space fund that isn't used regularly, but I would ask council to consider keeping the $200,000 in the green space fund that is there currently. I think that if there was ever a time to have a green space fund, it is right now. And if there's anything that Tecumseh Land Trust can do to help work with the village in terms of making that fund acceptable to the auditor or other reviewers, we are happy to do that. But I think the time is now to keep the green space fund in place. And with that, I will take any questions.
So within, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Within those 184 acres, is that what? I mean, is there also a priority area within that? I mean,
so that would be something I think that council might, if you all want to set a priority, you all might want to talk about. So you have one parcel that contains the Jacoby Creek, which has been a priority. The other 2 parcels have the higher development potential. So
that gets back to the impact on the Jacoby.
Right.
Gotcha.
So either way, you're going to have an impact to Jacoby Creek, but I think that if you had to think about priorities, we could sit down and talk about that, because it's not going to be an easy choice, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question about the budget, but go on.
Well, do you want to say any more about the thing in red there, the need 1.5 million for a conservation easement?
Oh, yeah,
So,
thanks. I kind of skipped right over that, didn't I, Gavin? So we are going to open up a campaign to raise money, just like we did with Whitehall and Arnovitz, because we do believe that we'll need somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million to purchase a conservation easement. We would like to do it from the current owners so that we don't have to worry about going to auction without it being protected. But we would also go with any willing bidder or buyer, depending on how the family decides to sell it, either at public auction or private sale. So I think that's the number we need to get to, though. And we're off to a good start, just to say. I mean, you all know the township put some money in, $112,000. The Tecumseh Land Trust Board, I'll be asking them at the end of the month to decide if they'd like to put some of our land acquisition money into that. We've already had a few donations, and so we're going to launch that campaign here very soon.
So related to that, so is there Clean Ohio money that would go into this as well, or?
So, all of that takes time, so I can't present that to the landowner as an option unless they're willing to wait for us to make the applications. Those application rounds come out. We'll have a federal ag easement purchase program round open probably in mid-October. Then the state farmland preservation round opens in January, and then Clean Ohio Open Space opens whenever they want to. So it makes it harder to put that into the package, because I think this family in particular is ready to make a move. I mean, we know they want to sell by the end of the year, so.
So with budget, since we have budget discussions coming up, is this something we talk about now, or we put for our first budget discussion?
Well, I think one thing related to that, Johnny or Judy, can you remind, Amy Kemper, our former finance director, told us that if we want to keep the money in there, we should pass a resolution or something about, or what, or?
No, my understanding, just Michele gone, is that it needs a funding source.
Correct.
That to have a budget line open, it needs a funding source.
You can't just set it in an account.
Right.
It's got to have some kind of a funding source. Kind of looks like you're hiding money if you don't have a funding source.
Okay.
So last time I was here, she said that we needed to pass a resolution, which you guys did till the end of the grant period. So you need a funding source. Okay.
Yes, the resolution was specific to maintaining it to cover the grant period. The funding source is the larger issue.
How much is in the budget now?
210-ish.
So, I mean, maybe I was going to say, it feels like it'd be nice to know the full context, but maybe that is the full context. I mean, there's $210,000, and we need a ongoing funding source if we're going to keep the fund alive. And how long do we have to make?
That's the reason why the resolution was passed the last time, because the county was asking for us to close it, because there was no funding sources.
So it kind of feels like a need to address it sooner rather than later before the county gets on us?
Correct.
Okay. And you're ultimately saying, hey, can you use that $200,000 toward this easement or toward another? You mentioned there was another property, but essentially that it would go into the pool.
Yes.
And so the question for this body is are we amenable to the idea of using, the green space funds for this purpose, or would they go toward some other, would we not be amenable? I think that's the ultimate question, right?
And I think relevant to the pool, 120,000, is that what the township?
It was about 112, 113,000.
Okay. So at the township's 2 meetings ago, they committed that amount to the project, just FYI.
And just
for the initiative.
Sorry, just for clarification purposes, the way the Green Space Fund has worked in the past is that it can only be for the properties that are identified in your land use plan, just to be very clear about what properties it can be used for.
Okay. And you're saying there's this one and then one more.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So if I'm understanding correctly, time is of the essence, like it matters. So, I mean, we could beat around the bush, but it seems like we should consider this at the next meeting and have a conversation then. I also feel a little bit odd about making decisions when we only have 3 of us here, and we didn't have a formal sort of ask in front of us, so we're going to need to get something formal.
Yeah, and I think Michele and probably Amy Blankenship would need to weigh in too. So, okay.
Okay.
Does that sound
Sounds good to
okay
me.
to everybody?
Okay.
So next meeting
Next
we'll
meeting?
reconvene.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I know there are folks that are here. Do we also take comments on special reports?
Michele.
Okay.
I would not at this point, but you are going to be hearing a resolution where you'll
Okay.
have more fuller information and about what specifically it is that you're planning to do. So I think it's more targeted.
Okay.
So Michele, I was just going to say, if you want to give a plug for September 20th.
Oh. Sure, thank you. In terms of supporting Springfield, we are having our annual fundraiser on Friday at the Springfield Museum of Art. It's a great time. If anybody would like to come, please come. We have very interesting auction items. We have great food by the Yellow Springs Baking Company. And if you know George Beery, he's going to be playing some great jazz. So
What is the time frame?
It's 6 o'clock, 6 to 9 on Friday. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is the manager's report. Johnny, take it away.
All right, so when I returned from vacation, I went to the Greater Dayton Manager and Mayor's event, and it was a good event on September 11th. I got to meet a lot of different people. Go down to Lawson Place. We are actively repairing the concrete going into the 2 different buildings. One is complete, one will be complete here shortly to make them more ADA compliant, take out the cracks and the bumps. Then I'll skip down because this is also at Lawson Place. We're going to start doing the parking lot the week of the 21st, October 21st. We'll be extending that parking lot. At the same time, you'll see in your packet that we have the front of the Bryan Center right out here on Dayton Street from Xenia Avenue to the bike path. And then also right downtown, we'll have some blacktop repair. So there'll be some detours and things to give you plenty of notice. That's happening the week of October 21st. We pushed it out past Street Fair, but we have some failing asphalt that we have to repair on that. Water tower, it was going slower today than what they expected, so they pushed the fill of the tower to start tomorrow. So we're back to filling water tower 2. It is complete, and then it is set for 2 weeks to do our testing. So we're about 3.5 to 4 weeks to getting it back online, so we can get that tower back in operational. So we're in good shape with our water towers now. Meg put together an economic tool concerning the TIF. Brian, she put it in there after you started getting some questions. So just as a general overview of the TIF tool that we're talking about.
And I thought that was an excellent summary, by the way.
Meg
Thanks,
did a
Meg.
fantastic
Yeah,
job
really
on
good.
it.
Very easy to digest.
We did install the benches that we was asked to do.
Happy to chat.
Happy to chat benches.
Yes.
We have some all over town now. One by the library and one on the new multimodal path by Bill Duncan. I've been having questions about the Bill Duncan sign. When's it going to get done? We picked it up last night, and so staff will be starting to install it probably this week. So we have a new sign going in there for Bill Duncan. Sidewalk repairs going on everywhere, and I said this in active transportation, and I'll say it again. My wife and I was in Berlin, Ohio, up in Amish country, and We actually did see an elderly lady fall that had Parkinson's, took a nasty spill on just a minimal amount of sidewalk. Tanner and I, even though we're being proactive, we're even going back and being more proactive again. So at budget time, I will probably bring that up again. When you see it firsthand, and then for an hour, you're there assisting and aiding to that person, and it was, I mean, it wasn't even a half inch. She just did not have the ability to make that depth perception with her walker. So just wanted to highlight that again. We have done a lot of work, us and the volunteers, to make it passable, but we still have work to do. Nipper's Corner, I'm going to check into that. I had not heard that, so I'm going to.
I just got, the email just went out
Okay.
2 hours ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I'm going to check into
Late breaking
that.
news. But it did come from Philip, our chamber director,
Okay.
so.
Nice, nice. Phil's doing some good work over there. The electric department's very busy. We're trying to get some things caught up to be able to get the school temporary power for their trailers that are due to be hooked up by January 1st is move-in date. So they'll be actively over there working. I talked to Ben today, and he's got, I think, 9 projects going on right now at one time. So they're extremely busy with House Bill 168 up on 68. They actually have 9 different crews in town right now just for that one project. So they're trying to get it wrapped up because the deadline is November. Rose has got a team of people in here changing out water meters. If you pay attention to social media and some outlets, you'll see if you have a water meter inside, they'll be sending you a letter so you can schedule an appointment to come in and change it out. Other than that, if your water meter is outside, you may not even know that they're there because they'll just change it out and turn it right back on. So, just a public service note, if you or know somebody that ran over our traffic crosswalk sign on the corner of West South College and you'd like to pay for it, it's $2,500. Just come see me and we will take care of that. And then if you'd like to return the street signs that they stole from the other side of the street, that'd be another $500 that we would like to get back. So just put it out there if anybody would like to confess, and just write me a check and we'll get it replaced. Take it out to the Village of Yellow Springs and we'll make sure it gets done. The water, people come in and did the water loss prevention. We have got it down considerably amount. So we have some other ones on the list that's actually part of the House Bill 168. Once we shut it off, them leaks will go away. So
Yeah, because I noticed you weren't here at the last meeting, but that dropped to 21% water loss, which I wondered what.
And this is the report that I'm talking about now. This is where they wanted to listen to the entire village for all this minor leaks. And if you can remember, the first time we did it, we had hundreds of thousands of gallons, and now it's very minimal. Touch base again on Rose's meter project is going very well. The electric meters that were due to be here in December showed up last Monday. So on top of all the other projects that they have going, they will be actively starting to change out the electric meters. Hopefully the next 3 or 4 months we will be 100% AMI ready to go for the entire village. Samantha did closing down the pool. Sad news for Judy. It'll be okay. We'll get through it. Paige did comfort you. I noticed that the last time.
Yep.
She said that they was one furry friend short at the thing. They had 32 the year before, but they had 31 this year. They was tickled to death, and she can't wait to see next season on what we have. We are actually scheduling to remove the pump. If you remember, it's time again. That's $9,000 to get it rebuilt. So they are actually scheduling to have the staff go in there and remove it. So, and Ben is working on the newsletter and the business cards and the email signatures, and if you want Meg to say anything about the housing update, or if you can just read the red, that's all I have.
Cool, thank you. Did you have a question?
Few. The newsletter looks cool, and we've seen, that was in the last packet too, a snapshot. So this is, some pages are done, but we're completing the...
We're completing them. We got
Okay.
2 more pages is added this morning,
Okay.
and we're waiting on Mayor Pam as well for a paragraph from Mayor Pam.
Okay. And then I just wanted to make sure you shared, I think you told me with the EV charger amp grant application that's not happening?
That is not happening. We was not able to get all the engineering done. I thought they was doing the engineering. Come back, we needed engineering, we needed all the plans to be able to submit for that.
Okay, so then we're keeping our ears open for other...
We actually have a meeting with Choice One on Monday to talk about some electric grants that we may be coming back from.
Okay. And speaking of Choice One, I wanted to make sure with the road safety study that they're doing, it specifically highlights, or at least in the report, about signals, but is that also going to include other traffic calming?
It will.
Best practices and things, recommendations?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think it would be good to have a pool update, kind of and that could be during the budget, but just kind of like what happened this year with the pool. And the last thing was, I did want to highlight, for those of you that don't read every sentence of our usually around 100-page packet, the idea that we may be able to put rooftop solar at Lawson Place is partly out of a grant that the Yellow Springs Development Corporation secured. Prize one, not a grant, prize. Prize one was $100,000. We're looking at a prize two that would be $200,000, and the whole idea was that is about doing community solar. So this is going to be awesome. We'll have a more detailed report out about it later, but I appreciate that we're collaborating on that. That's it. Yep.
One other thing is Allison provided an update on the CBE. Things are moving out there. The sign is in the works, and she has a potential for one of the areas. Maybe.
Yeah, exciting.
It's good news.
Yeah.
So my one little thing, Johnny, is the Lawson Place update just made me think. We talked about talking about that at Finance Committee. If we just put it on the agenda, just do a check-in on Lawson Place finances, that would be great. Trish, did you have any questions?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right, are we good to move on? Okay, the next thing, sorry, on the agenda is
Old business.
old business, thank you. And the first thing up is the low-income housing tax credit update. Looks like starting with Amy.
I've been out of my chair all night.
You're welcome.
Some kind of record. All right, good evening. There is not much of an update from the legal front because we paused the legal fees last meeting in light of information that Brian had shared. That was council's determination. A day or two after that meeting, so roughly Tuesday or Wednesday of that, or roughly Wednesday or Thursday of that week, because I believe it was our last meeting on a Tuesday, I think it was. I did speak to Paul Rutter, to the bond attorney with Bricker, and he indicated that BAM had responded and said, we've reviewed the legal description and survey, and that they were going to be agreeable to moving forward and reviewing documents and doing what was necessary. And the next step then is to get to the trustee and have that conversation. I told Paul that we were on this pause, so he has not done anything to that end, waiting to see what happens tonight. I think that's the extent of the update that I have. I know there's been a lot of information shared even as recently as today. Thank you for forwarding me any emails that I wasn't on, and I think we've all seen a lot of information now at this point, but I'm happy to discuss anything you want to run through.
There's one thing. Go ahead.
Well, just to say, I know that you had shared a memo that I think we were expecting would sort of be discussed in this agenda item. I don't know, it sounds like maybe you had some stuff too, I don't know.
I do.
So would it be okay if we kind of got like an update from everybody? And I'm flagging that one of the questions might be whether or not we're pausing. That's one of the things you're bringing up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know.
I have one question for Amy Blankenship, but did you as well, Trish? Or
I
was
do.
it- Okay.
No, I do.
You go ahead.
So I'd asked you to take a look at number 5 from the second email that we received today from Amy Bailey. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So off the top of my head, that was the point about sharing attorney-client privilege information between schools and village, right?
Right.
So there is a waiver in place for the purposes of the project. To my knowledge, any information that's been shared with the schools by Bricker attorneys in furtherance of the project, I'm aware of. I checked in with those attorneys today just to make sure, and we all believe to be on the same page where the capital P project is concerned. So any information that's being shared with schools or village separate and apart from that is still subject to the privilege and shouldn't be shared further.
Okay.
So I think it would be appropriate just to brief, because this was in the packet. So there was a letter that we received earlier today. Email that we received earlier today from Amy Bailey from the school board that was asking some questions, giving some updates. So that's just what's being referred to. I don't know when something comes in, like Brian's memo or this information, how do people find that then? Is it like a...
It's a public record.
Well, Judy has
unless
it
it
by
goes through-
Friday.
yeah.
If Judy has it by
Okay.
Friday, it's in the packet.
Okay.
Things that come in after that point.
But it sounded like you put my memo up on some Clerk base, right? Because it seemed like a lot of people read that. And I do apologize that it didn't get done by Friday. But actually, I was doing it until Sunday night because there was a lot of new information. But then I think the other thing is in terms of what Amy Bailey shared, I guess, or the email would be in our next packet, as a PNC. So my question was, we had talked about, there was some confusion at the school board meeting last Thursday about who was footing the bill. And so I just wanted you to share, because initially it started with the treasurer of the schools saying that they had been footing the bill up to this point. But you talked about a fund and kind of how that...
Yeah, I wish I had that. I should have brought that intergovernmental agreement up here with me. The way it's set up right now, per council's approval 2 meetings ago, maybe 3 meetings ago at this point, is that any work that's being done in furtherance of, again, the project, at this point trying to get the land unencumbered, is being billed to the Village of Yellow Springs Affordable Housing Matter.
Okay.
So any work that's being done on behalf of the project, so at this point, schools and village have sort of converged, right, to try and move this forward. That's all being billed directly to a bill that's coming to the village.
Okay. Thank you.
So was there anything, sorry, anything else from your...
Because you were talking about like our individual things. So honestly, I know there are a lot of people here that want to speak, so I think I can fill in some blanks if necessary after we do that. But I did want to highlight, you already brought up one, I think tonight we need to decide if we're removing the pause, which again was only specific to, we were going to wait to see what the outcome related to whether the schools were going to continue to work with the village or not. So it was definitely articulated as a temporary pause, not starting any new legal spending until we had some clarity around that. And so I think there are people that can speak to that better that are here from the school board. And then the second thing I brought up in my memo is I'd like us to talk a little bit about how we're going to start looking for that developer. I think all the signs are that we should at least be prepared to put out a request for qualifications or proposals or whatever we're going to do. And that also kind of ties into Emily's here today, and I think she'll share some things as well. But for the most part, my memos are always watching all the meetings, sharing everything with all the discussions. And again, I think there are people that can speak better to anything, but would be happy to answer any questions later.
So is this the time where we open it up to public comment? Is that okay?
You can. It's probably a good idea to say, let's spend about X amount of time doing that. Just give it a little framework.
I don't know how to put a number on it. I mean, hopefully folks can generally say new things and, but I think if folks have things to say, then let us know. Judith, were you?
I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what happened at the school board meeting.
Yeah, come on up. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Judith Hempflings, Yellow Springs School Board President. So just to recap, as you know, School Board decided in May and July, we passed resolutions to take steps to support your effort regarding the low-income housing tax credit proposal. And the majority of the board saw it that it could be a win-win, that it would be great for the community and great for the schools, and that we could address the needs, the needs for, replacing that land should this project go forward. Amy Blankenship talked about the message from Paul Rutter that came late last week regarding the BAM, and that I wanted to say that people have been working really hard on this, have put in a huge amount of time, as well as money being donated to help defray some of the expenses, such as the survey and the fees for Planning Commission. So a lot has already gone into it. Superintendent Holden spoke to the ESC superintendent, Terry Strader, sometime late July or August regarding this whole project, and evidently the ESC was unaware of this conversation that we've been having and the work that we've been doing. The ESC presented why they were interested also in the Morgan Fields at our meeting. School board did not waiver the direction we've gone. We've made a commitment, to be a partner on this, and so we did not change course, and the majority of the board voted that we support the intergovernmental agreement. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there other folks who have comments on this agenda item?
My name's Mitzie Miller. I'd just like to reiterate that it's my understanding that the board has committed to find other land for the soccer league and community soccer activities that have gone on, and for making that property whole and usable. So I again want to hear that there's a strong commitment that that's going to happen.
Thank you.
I'll just briefly say I think that commitment has been clear from this body. I certainly can second that. Brian or Trish, obviously, if you feel the need to say anything, go for it. But yeah, we've said that multiple times here.
Yeah, we're clear on our commitment, and the school board passed a resolution on Thursday that solidifies that they can't sell it without replacement property. So,
are there other comments? Yeah, Emma.
I'm Emily Seibel. I'm the executive director of Yellow Springs Home Inc. and playing catch up. I just got back from vacation. But I don't want to get out ahead of your conversation, but I did, after reading your memo today, I made some calls. And first of all, we just appreciate that everyone is walking this path in good faith. And we continue to support the public process. And as we've said from day one, what we'd really want to see is a win for everybody. So we appreciate the commitment to the replacement land for soccer fields and all of the due diligence. And I'm really grateful and inspired by seeing this public collaboration. I don't think and this is kind of a new chapter. It's very exciting, whether this project moves forward or not, just knowing that it's possible for us to all work together. And then I just want to acknowledge that it takes a lot of effort and reiterate that we're here to support the public process moving forward. So today I called Tim Beat from St. Mary after reading your memo, and they said that the following items should be completed no later than December 1st, 2024. Number one would be site zoning in place that permits multifamily housing of the density and scale that is needed. Number two is that the village has at least an option to purchase signed and in place with the school board, again, contingent on the tax credit funding. And an understanding of the U.S. Bank trustees' timing for getting the collateral lien released. But they felt that achieving those items by December 1st would give a lead developer enough time to engage third-party studies and review their findings ahead of the OFA February 2025 deadline. And then as you consider your process for selecting a developer, I mean, obviously being so involved with the land transaction itself, it makes sense, and we support the village's process. We do hope to be involved as the local developer partner, and there are several reasons for this. So the first is that our involvement as the local CDC will help to secure a lead developer partner. And it will also help to secure the $15 million in tax credits, because OFA will want to see involvement from the local CDC and support a lasting local presence in the project. We can also provide the village with some support in navigating the decision-making and negotiating process, including considerations for the strongest possible application and project. And then we can assist the developer that's selected in the local processes and community engagement. And we have the capacity to do the kind of community engagement that we know is going to be needed for a project of this scale and complexity, so that we can help to look out for our community's best interests in all aspects of siting, design, program, amenities, et cetera. It would also help to build capacity for local affordable housing efforts without increasing the total project costs. We can also help to negotiate property management in a way that could benefit existing affordable rentals in the village, potentially even Lawson Place. We would also benefit the project by providing support services in years 1 through 15. And then the most important piece is that we can help to negotiate what happens in year 15, which is when the initial compliance period ends, and we want to do that up front. Because we would be in a position to be able to provide some long-term local control through the Community Land Trust to ensure that the public investment is preserved and that it continues to be affordable housing after the compliance period.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a pretty big update.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most significant, information that I've heard in quite some time. We haven't had any sort of clear expertise on the project that's spoken to it in the way that you just did, so that's helpful to know. Are there other comments or questions from folks on this topic? Yeah?
Hi, I'm Jackie Hempling. I don't even know if this is controversial, but of course I would support the village on freezing the process on moving forward on removing the lien from the property. I guess this is the first meeting where it sounded like the village might take the lead role in recruiting a community housing development organization, as opposed to my previous understanding was that Home Inc. would be the one recruiting, and I was just wondering if there was any particular reasoning for that, and because intuitively it seems like something that Home Inc. would be more suited to from my uneducated standpoint. That's all. Not that it really matters who gets credit, like you guys both just want to work on it together, whatever. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments? Yeah.
Hi, Dino Pilato. I think at the Planning Commission, you guys saw, if you saw the meeting, there was questions that came up, especially with ESC wanted to get involved a little bit and wanted to hear where we were going with that, and if there was input or, when we're pushing ahead to make the decision, but we don't have all the information for you to really make an informed decision. I think that's what I was pushing for at the Planning Commission meeting. I have a question that I'm hearing about the replacement land, and just for my clarity now, and I'm not sure where we're at. Do we need the replacement land in hand first in order to proceed? Or are you looking at hoping that the land's coming after the fact if you're going to push along? Because I think that's a dynamic that really puts everything kind of in hold to see what's going to happen. I just don't know what the answer is. So does it have to come first? If we have to show replacement land that is bought, then we can go ahead with the project? Or are we just going to go push ahead with the project in hopes of getting land? I think because that's an issue. I think that's an effort that we're putting forth, a lot of effort, and a lot of times being spent on everybody just to push the project along if you don't have the land in hand. So, and then the last thing I talked about too, I said, and I'll bring it up again, we're looking at the students again, for the Yellow Springs students with losing potential land for soccer, and now if ESC has some interest, now you're looking at Greene County students. So again, now you're impacting more, and I think you need to take that into account with going forward and making decisions. Thanks.
I'll just respond to that briefly because my understanding, and I guess I think it's worth us checking in about briefly, is that to your question about the land, I guess I don't think there was anything that had been formally agreed to, but my understanding was that it was sort of like we got to figure this out before we can go forward, and that the school board had been talking about being whole or whole plus, and so I guess I was under the impression that it wasn't like sign the deal and then figure out the land later. It was like these things got to happen simultaneously, which is part of the reason why there was some discussion about the follow-up on the Planning Commission meeting, and on our next agenda we'll have the zoning question first reading, because there is sort of an interplay of the timing of when these things happen. So I thought I'd bring it up. I think it's something just to make sure that's everybody else's understanding too.
That's fine. And so also, part of the reason why we paused last meeting was because we had just heard about the ESC, through a rumor. Now we hear through email from Amy Bailey that Agraria is potentially interested. And Terry's here. Are you planning to speak so we could hear more? Okay.
I guess I should speak for the
Yeah. So maybe we'll have you come up next related to the clarifying the agraria piece. Again, I'll just reiterate, having watched the school board meeting, actually I think twice, and being involved in this, it's pretty clear to me that the resolution that the school board passed will require that replacement land to be in place before we get that option to purchase. So that then means, now we know we've got a December 1st deadline if we're going to get an application in. So I think there was, I thought that was made crystal clear, but Rebecca or Judith, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
So I've got it sounds like there's two folks who want to make comments. Did you want to start? Something else too? Okay. Did you want to start? Yeah, go ahead. Or whoever wants, yeah.
Jason Bailey, Yellow Springs resident. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not any organizations that represent the village. I think it'd be a good time for us to explore how we got this place, excuse me, where would it be okay with the school buying heavily utilized a property and put a multi-unit housing project on it. The answer is on some of the shirts people wear in the Yellow Springs village meetings, not in my backyard. We have gotten to this place by putting a green belt around the village. The same people who are fighting for the sale of school land are the same ones who have advocated for restricted measures put on Yellow Springs property. The current school board president has stated many times that she was an integral part for fundraising to put the Whitehall Farm into the Tecumseh Land Trust, not in my backyard. backyard. The same school board president whose first action after becoming president was to try to put an easement on Mills Lawn by restricting any future school education development, which could include a greenhouse, bike path for preschoolers, or any educational structure. Not in my backyard. We are not saying not in my backyard. We are saying not 580 feet away from a commercial marijuana grow facility that is one of the top 5 employers in the village and has expressed concerns with the proximity of this project. And every fall, we know the village gets complaints over concerns over the grow lights. We are not saying not in my backyard. We are saying not 100 feet away from the Greene County ESC, who's one of the top 5 employers in the village and supports children from 7 school districts and has expressed interest in purchasing land for some expansion, trying to maintain enough green space for the current school activities. We are not saying not in my backyard. We are saying not on the most utilized green space in Yellow Springs, where one of the justifications for the multimodal path was support for school activities, after-school school activities, which rec soccer has the most participants during the week and weekends. Location matters to our children. Council, you are driving the train on this. You're the only buyer that the school district can sell to at under market value without competitive bidding. And I apologize what I'm getting ready to say, Riley. This might ruin your April edition from the Yellow Springs News, but this is what's happening. Yellow Springs Council buys school district land 300 meters away from expanding commercial marijuana grow facility, which is a top 5 employer in the village, preventing expansion of the Greene County ESC, another top 5 employer, and eliminating by far the most utilized green space by villagers to build a 60-unit structure across from a commerce park where council recently allocated $50,000 to hire an executive director whose #1 objective is the attraction, retention, and growth of businesses to Yellow Springs. If you put all this into the decision matrix, the location does not pass the make sense test. There are many other locations. You are hammering to fit, paint to match an affordable housing project without a plan and burning taxpayer money on both council and school board sides. And if you don't believe me, just watch an entire school board meeting. If you have any concerns at all over the school board property not being adequate location, I ask that you speak now and have a conversation between council members and the village manager. You are driving this train, not the school board. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Rebecca Potter. I'm speaking on behalf of Agraria to Trish's point. And I don't know all of the details, but just a correction that an issue came up at the school board meeting where I was asked to clarify a conversation I had with a donor of the property for Mary's Way. I'd like to take this moment to say that we're having a ribbon cutting for Mary's Way on October 6th, 1 to 3, and it's really exciting. But the property mentioned was suggested is after it was unclear how this project was going forward. That very generous donors thought maybe we can look at other options, but Agraria is not, that this issue is not in front of its board. It's a landlocked piece of property with a beautiful bike path right down the middle of it. It's very narrow. So I would just want to clarify that I think there was some confusion there, and I apologize if I was part of that confusion, but this is not something that Agraria has taken up.
So they're not offering land?
Agraria has not offered land. It was part of a casual conversation with a friend. I was in my role as an Agraria person, and I know that can be confusing at the village, and I find it unfortunate that it has gotten a bit blown up.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Terry Graves-Streeter, Superintendent, Greene County ESC. I'm here tonight to reiterate the ESC's position on Morgan Fields being rezoned from low-density to high-density residential. Zoning regulations are implemented for a reason. The property was intended to be used for educational purposes and should continue to be. We strongly oppose this change, and as the closest neighbor and as a public school agency who runs a school on one side of our building, we should have a voice in this matter. The ESC, as Mr. Bailey said, we're in the top 5, maybe top 3 of the largest employers in the village. We have nearly 200 employees and pay employee taxes to the village. We have an array of programs. We have the Learning Center at the ESC, which is in Yellow Springs, and we have between 75 and 100 plus students in a given school year. We have the Alternative Middle School and High School in Bellbrook. It's the Academy and Outdoor Advantage, if you've never heard of those. We have intensive needs programming in Bellbrook. We rent space in Bellbrook. We have Project Life, an employability skills program for super seniors on the campus of Wright State University. We run integrated preschools for Yellow Springs, Cedar Cliff, Bellbrook, and Greenview. Services that we provide, and these staff tend to travel to different districts, so that's why you don't get all the taxes for them, because they're in different locales in the county. But we provide occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, adapted PE teachers. We have vision and hearing services, audiological services, and they travel across the county to give those services. Prevention services, which we get through a grant, and the schools get those services for free. We are the first ESC in the state of Ohio who has a mental health agency, CARF accredited, within our mental health, or within our agency, and we provide school-based mental health services across the county. We also have what's very, very highly touted by the State Department and the Governor's Office, early childhood mental health consultation. This is a $2 million plus grant that we've gotten over the last several years, and it benefits the county and our region. We have instructional support services that several of our school districts purchase. And we offer professional development at our ESC, and if you've ever been in there, and you're welcome to come. We have a very large facility for professional development, and our schools take advantage of that. If the ESC were to obtain Morgan Fields, which, again, we know that's a long shot, considering everything I've heard, we have no immediate plan for the space, but have some general ideas. As stated, we believe that any building on the space should be for education and not housing. If we were to purchase the land, we would work on a financial plan for the ESC to examine our programs and services, which we do all the time, but we haven't created a plan for expansion yet, but we've talked about it. We would develop a building plan with an architect that includes green space. I referred to parking at the Yellow Springs board meeting, but there was no intent to blacktop Morgan Fields. I think that might have come out in a memo. We would have additional parking, of course, if we had a building that went with it. We recently did exterior work on our building. I hope you've noticed. It looks a lot better. It was much needed. We had tuck pointing done across the whole building, or else it was going to fall apart on us. So on top of that, we did a facelift. I think anything we do in the future would be visually appealing, I think, to the community. And we would consider playground space and other things that the community could access. So when the the Yellow Springs schools had building levies initially put on the ballot a handful of years ago, a big point of contention was the potential loss of green space. I heard and saw it all the time, especially for Mills Lawn. I would ask that the same consideration be made for Greene County ESC. We believe that a housing development is not appropriate for Morgan Fields, and that abuts our educational property. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. I want to start bringing this to a close. Can I just get a quick show of hands? How many other people were hoping to comment? A couple? Okay, let's take these last two, and then we're going to move on, okay? I mean, we're going to talk about it, but no more public comment after that. Okay.
Hi, Jessica Thomas, citizen. I just wanted to speak to a couple of points that were made about yes in my backyard or no, not in my backyard. I believe that if we think about that particular property and what the state has identified as a high-scoring potential site for housing, I think it's important to consider why the state said that. Should the CBE continue to expand, we would have, if the CBE expands and we have housing there, then we would actually be encouraging people to work closer to where they live, which would help with less people on the road driving, more people using spaces for walking, biking, so on and so forth. I work with students who are housing insecure as a teacher in Dayton Public Schools, and when I think about placing housing near a school, I see it as a win-win because not only is there additional housing, but I have fewer students, or I would potentially have fewer students who are struggling to get to school, and we know that there are many families in Yellow Springs that are housing insecure, and at the point where they might be considered transient students, which means that they don't have stable housing from school year to school year or are moving consistently every year trying to get new housing. I also, all of that said, I would not want to pit two schools against each other. I've worked with ESCs in all of my teaching positions, and I think the ESC is incredibly important. However, I also think that proximity is important, so considering how many programs the ESC has that are in different communities, the proximity for those kiddos is also important. So I personally don't see the point in centering all of the ESC things in Yellow Springs because those services, like was stated, are taking place all throughout the county. So I urge council to continue to unpause their legal exploration and continue moving forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello again. I'm April Wolford, community member. And I want to echo what Jessica said and what others have said. I also want to thank you again for wrestling with these priorities and the school board members who are here for really wrestling with these important concerns for the community and for the village, and to find a path forward for affordable housing in Yellow Springs. It's promising. I'm excited, actually, about where we are and how much progress has been made, and that we are in this place where we're literally on the threshold of being able to get some land, transactions in the works, and that is coming together. And then I also wanted to bring home, so I wanted to urge you to unpause. So the purpose of that is to unpause this so we can move forward and get the final decision from the bank, and then know where we stand in that regard in terms of the lien finally. I also wanted to share and kind of bring things home about why we're doing this. Matt Raska and I talked with a woman who provides custodial services here in Yellow Springs. She works 3 jobs. She's the guardian of a young school-aged child. She would love to live in Yellow Springs. She cannot, even though she works 3 jobs, she cannot afford to live in our community. So she's commuting from wherever she lives, and we're talking about gas emissions and idling cars in town, and we're also sort of supporting an environment in which the people who serve this community and work in our restaurants and in our stores are driving to this location in order to serve the community. So remember that. In my opinion, that's why we're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I've heard sort of 2 kind of questions on the table. One around sort of what to do about the pause, and then the question around is there some sort of step or process around looking for a developer? So I guess I'll start. Are there, Trish, Brian, do you want to weigh in on those things, or are there any other comments you would make in light of all the things that folks have said?
I wish we had a full board, a full council tonight. I think that's problematic. But you were going to speak on potentially us being involved in getting the developer.
Yeah. So does that mean you want to wait on talking about the unpause and talk about that first? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Johnny, do you want to kind of jump in about, because I mean, I think Jackie, actually, we have talked about the village having a key role in the project. And Johnny and Carmen and I and our village solicitor, so that it's not a new conversation. And as I've mentioned in my memo several times, I think we also understand the collaboration with Home Inc. To identify that developer is key. But yeah, Johnny, maybe you want to say a little bit about what you're thinking.
If the village is going to own the property, I think we ought to have a vital role in choosing the developer and putting an RFQ out there. Amy and I have had long conversations about what that looks like and be able to reach out to other people and try to get an RFP out there and be a leading person in the charge to find them.
And then I guess my point was that if we're going to unpause, I think we also should start getting prepared. We've now got a date, right? We're targeting in 2 months that we have these items together. And so I think part of that means that if we have that joint meeting, which I think we're going to, we can start talking about it a little bit there, but then I think it becomes sort of the representatives of the village working with Home Inc. to talk about what that process looks like.
So I'll just say that this process has been really weird. I don't know how much y'all are aware of this, but we're learning most of this at the same time you are. So we get this information. You heard we got a couple memos in the last 24 hours. Updates that folks are bringing. We haven't had a sort of systematic community engagement process. So it's just an interesting process to try to engage with. So I guess to follow up on this developer piece, Johnny, so I guess I'm wondering, I think what I've seen from council so far has been, I think it's been all 5-0 votes on things that have been relevant to sort of inching our way along, right? And the way I've interpreted it is that there's sort of okay, well, if we can figure it out, maybe, and also there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered. And I guess I'm wondering, how do you feel about sort of re-engaging with the project in terms of starting to provide and sort of help to gather systematic information so that when we are having these meetings that we're in a position that we're not figuring it out on the fly, that we're systematically considering all of the options related? How do you feel about that?
Well, let me go back to one thing, and I think Brian asking for a RFP to go out, I think we're in the same place we was a year ago. We don't actually have the piece of property to be able to go out for that RFP. That was the main thing that we was lacking last time. We did not have a guarantee. To put an RFP out to a possibility, we're not going to get the takers. So we need to have that signed document or a letter from somebody saying that, yes, this piece of property is game, let's go for it, to where we can engage in that next step. Right now, it's still, we're into the PACC, we're into the BAM, we're into this, we're into that. So I don't think we're quite there yet as far as engagement. Brian and I talk. But that's about as far as the engagement goes. I get my information when you get yours, and Brian and I have had, we had a meeting on Wednesday, we've talked over the weekend. So I am engaged, Brian does the writing, but I know about as much as everybody else, because again, I'm not here on the weekends or in the late evenings when a lot of these meetings are happening. I do also watch the school board meeting, but I tried to live stream it the other night. It was not on, so I've not been able to catch up with the school board.
And I guess I don't think I disagree. I mean, to me, I'm saying let's be prepared.
Correct.
And so to me, part of that is knowing once we know the lien is removed, that we're ready to pull the trigger. And so, yeah.
And so on that note, Amy Blankenship and myself and Meg, I can't leave Meg out, we have some RFQs or RFPs that we have pulled from other communities for projects like this, and we've been talking about it.
Okay, good. And then I think the other piece of this is especially with all the things that Emily highlighted with Home Inc., is I'd like for at least, staff to get together with Emily, and then possibly Carmen and I too, I mean, if that makes sense. But I'd like to just kind of have that a little bit more clear. So that to me is part of the preparation. So.
And I'll also say some of it is Brian's taking the lead on a lot of this because we are full-time running the other direction, doing other projects and getting other things out of the ground. So, I mean, Brian has been some of the champion behind all this as well.
Yeah, I guess it feels like maybe we need to figure out whether there's a shift here, because I think, at least from my perspective, what's been challenging is that I'd like to have an outside, a sort of cold view of, sort of here are the facts of the matter, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, and not have to do it all on the fly. So I guess I don't know if that resonates with other people, but I'm hoping that we could make a shift where I understand that it is a capacity concern. And so if you said we just don't have it, then I suppose we'd have to have a conversation about it. But I guess I'm looking to get to a point where these meetings, when we get to these meetings and we get our packets, that there has been staff effort put into gathering information that would be the kind of information that would be relevant and synthesizing that information that we would want to be considering for the next meeting. Does that sound plausible, or do you hear that and think, no way?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what more I could have added to Brian's.
Well, so like in this case, for example, the biggest piece of news I heard tonight was when Emily came and said that there's a developer this is a developer who then has worked with a developer who has done these projects. This is honestly, I feel like what I've been waiting on for the last several months is the question of, is this actually possible? And there were steps that were happening, but there had never been a systematic analysis that here are the steps and here is the likelihood of their ability. Not to mention the many sort of questions about, it's interesting, this dynamic around a new party that's directly adjacent to the property.
Can we rewind one? We just heard the same thing we heard a year ago with deadlines. We needed to have it done by December 1 to be able to get it on the February 2024 application date. And Emily texted me at 5:30 right before we come in here, and she just got back from vacation. I just got back. I didn't even know she had reached out to St. Mary's to get that update. So we'll work on communicating better and see what we can get out there.
No, I get it, that this case had happened the last second. I'm just wondering, could we start proactively communicating and gathering information so that we're in a better position to make...
And I think that joint meeting is, I hope, the start of that. And then now that we've got, staff and council representatives, so, I mean, I think we're at that shift.
I feel like there's an elephant in the room here because there was some concern raised about, and Kevin has certainly raised it repeatedly, concern raised about the village engaging in purchase of any land that's for recreational purposes that is not directly for the purpose of affordable housing. And what I'm hearing is, until you do that, you can't do this. So now Johnny's getting you go ahead and get this piece together, but that I don't see that as able to happen until somebody figures out land for soccer, and I don't know that the council has the go-ahead in terms of surviving an audit to engage in that process. We don't have those answers.
We're not engaging in that process. Replacement property is the school board's working on that. So, and I mean, that's been really clear, certainly in my mind.
So has the school board similarly been given a deadline because theirs precedes
Yep,
ours?
December 1st.
That's too late. We won't have an option on that property if they're not getting those replacement fields.
I mean, yeah, the idea is as soon as possible, but I'm just sort of saying we now have a target. But yeah, but we're not, that's not, and I think the board and the superintendent have been clear that that's not our role. And I think we want it to happen, and we want to, support in any way we can, but we're not directly involved. So, but what is true is we need that for the option to purchase. And if we can't get that to happen, then we won't get the option to purchase.
Okay, so I know you wanted to say something, but I think we have some follow-up to do. There's no question about it. So if I understand correctly, the question on the table related to the pause, quote unquote, was basically just, should we move forward? Because there's still this fairly significant, it sounds like, outstanding question of whether these trustees will allow for this lien to be removed, and so we have to follow up. So that's the main next step related to the pause, is that correct?
Correct. And it could be time consuming. We have no way of knowing.
Okay. So I guess I don't know if we need a motion or something, but I don't think we did a motion the last time, but I guess I would support the idea of continuing to find out what's possible. How do y'all feel about it?
That's how I feel.
I feel the same way. I just wish the others were here to be able to vote as well. The timing is not good.
Yeah. And obviously, we have nothing we can do about them not being here. It just, yeah.
But we do have that, as somebody mentioned, the 5-0 vote record. So,
I think we did do a motion last time.
Okay, so that would be helpful? Okay, so I guess I would make a motion to unpause and whatever the language is that needs to go with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Make a motion. You want me to?
I think Gavin made a motion.
I second.
Okay.
I believe the motion was to unpause. I'm not quite sure
I know,
how to
we need a
translate that.
To continue the legal exploration.
To continue the legal
of the LIHTC project.
So, okay, sorry. So then are there questions about that?
We just have to vote.
Yeah, so, okay.
Oh, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, so,
And you, I'm sorry, Hausch, were you second?
Trish
I did.
seconded.
okay. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So then I guess my 2 cents would be on this other question about the looking for development piece, that it sounds like y'all are already in conversation about this to some degree.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel to me like there's something, I'm not hearing like here's the next step. That there's a clear next step around having a joint meeting with the school board to have some shared understanding or, start communicating formally. And then there's next steps around how staff and council engage and prepare for the next meeting, which we just talked about to some degree. So I'm not hearing another thing that we need to do, but am I missing something?
No.
No,
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I want to be clear. I don't want to put it out an RFQ or an RFP unless we have a reason to. So, yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, that is the longest 5 minutes of your life. But man, it's nice to actually talk about things that are interesting and talk about them in full. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is review of the school board council joint meeting agenda, which is the next thing up here. And somehow my name is on it. You're joking. Somehow, I know other people are working on it. So my name is here, but I know about as much as what was in the packet. So I think the basic dynamic is that we want to have a meeting. I think we've all said we want to have a meeting. My understanding is that the school board wants to have a meeting. And so I think the question is, what do we do at the meeting? And so there's an agenda that started to spell out some things. And so we were going to talk tonight about what the agenda looks like and how to proceed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if school board members that are here, if you want to weigh in or you have, I think feel free to jump in, right?
I think feel free that only 2 of you better jump in.
Okay.
And we have already heard from 2 of you.
Right, but
Actually, I can.
yeah, and you can also, because this is a different topic, but I would like Amy Bailey because Amy did a really thoughtful job of thinking about this draft agenda, and it'd be great if you could share what your thoughts are for our goals, because you brought this forward initially, and I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, so it's just, you've been able to see it in your packet. It's basically just for us to be able to come together and answer a lot of the questions that we've been hearing throughout the community, throughout our administrators. And Brian, I don't know if you worked with Judy or Judith or whoever to kind of revise it, there was one thing that I did want to include on the agenda that was removed, and that was the CHOTO selection process. The reason for that is, and this is why I asked the question, if we're allowed to exchange client privileged information. We've received information on, we have to be able to quantify, I don't want to say too much. I'd like to be able to discuss the CHOTO selection process together if we can, to the capacity that we're allowed to. So if we can at least include that into the agenda, and we can find out more between now and next Wednesday as to what we can discuss, as to what my reasoning is behind that.
And I think the only reason it came off was just clarity about.
Yeah, and I understand that, we're not necessarily involved in the process, but we have to be able to legally justify expenditures in certain ways. So that's why, part of the reason.
Does that fit logically under discussion of legal advice provided to the school district?
It can, yeah, that can go under there. I had it down at the bottom, but that's fine. Yeah, it works in there. And then, so the quantified community benefits to justify any future and current legal expenditures, it says not needed at this point, but I think it is needed. That's part of the process with the CHOTO selection. The other thing that I originally had in here that was removed that I think is very important, especially since Terry's here tonight, is discussing the impact that it has on the community if the ESC and Cresco, their concerns that they've raised, if we could discuss those together as two governing bodies. And that was really the gun safety partnership and the school facilities update. Those came from our meeting on Thursday. If we have time for those, I think those would be great additions. But that's really all I had. Oh, Mills Lawn is the location, though. We have it listed as the council chambers right now. But
And we actually, we have an updated one.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah.
And it's got the right time, too.
Mills Lawn, 6 to 8 p.m. Please come.
So can I,
Community comments will be there.
if this isn't a question for you, I guess so like, my main thing when I was looking at it is I was trying to figure out, like, this could be a really complex meeting. And so I was wondering, like, who would facilitate the meeting? And how would we put timestamps on the things? So I wonder if you've given that thought, or if you have.
Well, it came to my mind when other members of my board offered to or wanted to include other items on the agenda, and I'm not trying to discount those items, but I was also concerned at the amount of time that we would have to take on the LIHTC project. So we've said 6 to 8 p.m. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. I don't know, Brian and I can talk together and kind of put time limits on each section if we should, need to do that. I guess the one thing we should discuss is community comments. We are going to have community comments, and that'll take a huge chunk of the time, I think. So that's something Brian and I can discuss too, as to what, if we want to put a time limit on that. That's kind of hard to do with this such a big project.
Well, could those be at the end of the other items?
Yeah, like at the end of the end of the meeting. Yeah.
And I think, to Amy's point, I think the other agenda items, which I think would be great to talk about, it should be conditional on time, because I think the goal is to make sure we're communicating now that we've got an intergovernmental agreement, make sure the community can ask questions and make comments, and then kind of move forward. And joint meetings are not a bad thing, so we can have another one.
I would love for the Asklin-Doden property to come off.
Yes.
And I think the gun safety partnership, there was a lot of information provided by our chief, who spoke with Terry Holden. I think that's a separate meeting. That's because there are very different understandings about what the police department here is capable of doing. And I think that's a conversation that needs to happen with those principal
other
players
entities.
first.
So I appreciate your piece around the ESC and Cresco, and I'll just say part of the weird part of this is that we could have a whole conversation about that piece alone, and yet we're not we have to go fast or whatever. Anyway, so it feels like somewhere on here there could be like a stakeholder input, and then like,
Yeah.
could we ask people to submit, or could we gather the statements? Like, I didn't know that Cresco had weighed in on this issue, for example.
Well, that was in your packet, oh gosh, several meetings ago when they
Related
submitted
to
the
the
letter. Yeah, they said that they had concerns over even housing being across the street from their facility. It was in the letter that, and I mean, I can bring that next week.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Honestly, I didn't even remember that. I was so focused on the part around whether or not the CBE land would be used. So anyway, you get what I'm, so
Yeah.
ultimately it sounds like y'all are already working together, and I guess then, ideally there would be some timestamps put on things. Obviously the facilitation is a big deal. Somebody could frame this and frame it totally differently than someone else. So I guess I'm hoping that y'all will be working together to try to present sort of a, I don't know, fair and balanced,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know that I should necessarily, and Brian and I can talk about this, but lead from the school board standpoint. President Hensling might be the one to do that, I'm not sure. So that's something that the three of us could talk about.
Okay. And then Judy, you said you need this by?
Ideally tomorrow noon, so it could be as late as Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Get it in
The full
paper.
agenda or?
Whole
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah, to put it in the notice.
Okay, so then the only other thing that I'm just looking like this could be a really complicated meeting. So I looked at this and I was like, I actually really look forward to talking, and also, whew. So we lead off with a 1 to 2 minute position statement. So I guess the only thing I'd ask is like, position, like, I don't know. I wonder, could we do that
Right.
later, where there's like there's been some chance to absorb the information that's been shared? Is it like hey, here's my quick first
Maybe it could
thoughts?
be a conclusion process.
Yeah.
Brian has added that in, so, because I think I originally had the introduction of project representatives for each governing body. Also, like because at the time when I was thinking about this, Home Inc. was involved, and would other entities would be there to present. But yeah, if that's better at the end, I mean, that's fine too.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We're just going to get put on the spot immediately.
I
That
know,
doesn't
right?
sound like fun.
I just want to know what you're thinking right away.
No, I mean, if it feels like that's important to the flow of the meeting, I'm not totally opposed. I'm just saying, like, it struck me as like, I just feel like we don't know a lot still.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to having the meeting so I know more and then responding to it, as opposed to previous, for whatever that's worth.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. So ultimately, we're empowering y'all to figure out the agenda, but is there anything else that you need us to sort out?
Do we want to invite anybody else? Do we want to invite the ESC to come in and weigh in? Or you said a statement, or I forget, somebody said a statement. Or do we want to, I personally, speaking on behalf of myself, the ESC is a huge part of this now. And I think it's kind of been, I don't want to say discounted, but I think it's something that you all should hear more about, and we heard about it at our board meeting last week, but I think it poses a huge community impact.
I think we should invite Cresco too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Home Inc. So I guess the way I look at it is that I hope those stakeholders can be there and engage in those parts of the meeting, which I think sounds like that.
I don't know if we'd need, well, maybe we could ask Cresco. I don't know if they would need to be there.
Right.
They have the written statement, but it's the 25th. It's next Wednesday from 6 to 8 at Mills Lawn.
Yeah, and so we will not be live streaming that unless somebody's going to do it on their phone, but we will video that meeting. So it'll go up on our Facebook page and YouTube channels, I think,
The
for both of
acoustics
us.
in our gym are not the best.
Yeah.
So for the live streaming, it doesn't work very well. So
Yeah.
we tried board meetings there, and it's hard to do. Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Amy. I don't think we're going to take, I don't think we're going to take public comment on this one. Okay. The next up is new business, which is the review of the investment policy. Maybe we could do this one in 5 minutes.
I think this is like
Let's do it.
probably the less.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, this I think just, well, Judy, it came up because we're supposed to review it regularly, and I don't think anything needs to change. The last time we reviewed it, or updated it, was to make sure that there was council involvement, which we have. That's the finance committee now. And so I don't think there's anything, from my perspective.
Yearly would be the only thing that I would say that we should, it doesn't, I don't think yearly would need to be
To modify that.
modified to yearly.
Yeah, well, so,
As recommended by Finance Committee?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so that could be triggered by finance.
We're talking about selling a wreck, so we got to review the policy, see if we want to change it.
This is investment.
We're on investment
Oh, I'm
policy.
sorry. I just did a Trish.
But I think as recommended by Finance Committee, because that's the entity that,
Well, then they need to be quiet.
Sorry, yeah, just tell them to be quiet.
to be aware of any necessary changes. I mean, that's who's giving that initial review. So
That's okay, I just
if you
didn't-
change section P to say policy shall be reviewed as recommended by Finance Committee as needed, as needed as recommended by Finance Committee, and it just goes on to the same stuff, then you've got your, if it comes up, it comes up. If it does not need to come before council.
Okay, so then, are we making a motion now, or we're bringing that back to the next
It
meeting?
would need to come back as it's an ordinance, so it needs to come back with that change.
Admittedly, I sort of glazed over at some point when reading this, so if it's in there, I'm sorry. But, so is there like a sort of final decision maker on, like the way we do it functionally is we're sort of like, oh, how should we make this? And then we kind of talk about it, and then it seems like the sort of, the main decisions are with the, Judy, I guess in your role as treasurer, with the finance director. I think as I'm reading it, it's like council is the ultimate decision maker, but that process-wise, we do what we've been doing. Did I read that properly? Like, let's say we had a disagreement about what to do. Who decides, I guess, basically?
Well, the finance director really determines whether it is in fact feasible, whether it will negatively impact the budget. I mean, it's a conversation generally, but the bottom line is finance director is the one who's bonded and putting her job on the line. So.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know for sure, so, okay.
Okay.
All right, so it sounds like we're bringing that back, so we're okay with that? Okay. The next thing is the review of the rec ordinance. I don't know, it's mine, but go ahead, yeah. Yeah.
Jumped ahead.
So I think this is just, there's a couple minor changes, I think, mainly that we would not do it on the annual basis, and that's what Johnny was just talking about. Were there any questions about that?
That was straightforward.
Yep.
Okay. So I think we're good with that, so then do we need a motion, or do we,
Comes back.
Come back, okay.
Changes for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then we're on to boards and commission reports. I'll just say, so on Planning Commission, Carmen and I did interviews. This is the right time to do that, right? Yep. Carmen and I did interviews. I think these are at your table with Chad Runyon and Mark Carr. So we wanted to nominate them as alternates for the Planning Commission. I'll just say that we had thoughtful, engaging conversations with both of them. They both served on multiple other things before. They both seem very interested. If anything, they're bummed they can't actually be on Planning Commission, that they're alternates. But they both had done homework about it, had been thoughtful about it, and we had really interesting conversations with them. So just wholeheartedly appreciate their engagement and interest, and make a motion to nominate Chad and Mark.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions?
No.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
So I'm going to jump right on your heels there, and because there's no council representative to the BZA, I did ask Chad if he would be willing to serve as an alternate on BZA as well. Walked him through the differences therein and gave him materials. He watched meetings. He is interested, and I would therefore like to grab him quick and nominate him for an alternate to the BZA.
Okay, so you want a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll move to make Chad Runyon a alternate for the BZA.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So then we
Are
might as
there-
well do the Environmental Commission. And we do have 3 resumes or letters of interest from those folks as well. So we all know Riley Dixon. He would like to renew his term as a full member. And Riley's not only bringing no idling to the conversation, but lots of other value. Then we have John Ricketts, who brings a significant amount of experience around stormwater. So as soon as Carmen and I met with him, we want to get you guys together. He's got some really cool ideas, and we're also, after Carmen and I discussed it, we have one other full member position that we were going to offer, or we'd like to nominate him for. As a side note, Nancy Lineberg is not re-upping, so that opens that spot. And then Mark Carr, who we already talked about with the Planning Commission, is also interested in the Environmental Commission. He brings a lot of knowledge around youth engagement and education, and so I think that's a really cool element that we don't have a lot of focus on right now, and we are nominating him for the alternate position. So I guess I'll make a motion to approve those 3 new members.
I'll second.
Hi.
Jinx. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right.
And just for library, we have a meeting this week, so the library board, we haven't had a meeting in a while.
Okay, any other board and commission reports, things?
I want to say something about the Active Transportation Committee, which met last week. First, I just want to highlight that one of the things I really like about that committee is there's a lot of, with a council member there and with Johnny regularly attending, there's a lot of good connection. And so a lot of great stuff comes out of that group. And it's not always possible to have that with every commission and committee, but it's really powerful, and you've got a lot of great folks in that room. But 2 things that are coming up. One is a proposal to go after the next Safe Routes to School grant, and this impacts, one piece of that would be the sidewalk on East Eden, which is actually related to a condition for the new school facilities. And we've got some other areas as well, trying to have a nice crossing at Limestone to get onto the bike path there at Quarry. So Johnny's in the mix on that. This group provides some capacity, but the village does need to take the lead on that grant. So of course it would go through whatever process, but there is I don't think there's a match for Safe Routes to School. Is there? Okay. And then the other thing that has been mentioned before, but we're going to get more active about it, is updating the active transportation plan. It's 5+ years old. And we're going to engage with Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission to do a walking audit. A great suggestion that came up is let's focus on downtown. So we're going to try to get some people together, do some walking, do some recommendations, look where there's opportunities for more safety and so forth, and that'll complement some of the other work. So that's what's happening there. And that's all I've got.
Very good.
Anything else on boards and commissions? Okay, future agenda items.
I've got one. Gavin has heard a little bit about this. We had a chance to discuss it at agenda planning last week or the week before, whenever that occurred. This is in relation to, and Johnny fill in the blanks here of the stuff that I don't know. This is in relation to the Antioch property, generally known as the golf course, right? Correct. There is a 1991 ordinance of Village Council that relates to that property, and I guess back in the late 80s, early 90s, that property went back and forth between Village and Antioch. This ordinance transferred it from Village to Antioch, and in the ordinance, there's some language that says that the college agrees it'll use the land for present zoning and not seek zoning changes in the future. So we could sit here all night and discuss the legalities of that and how enforceable that language in our ordinance is. It's not a contract, but it was passed by Village Council in their ordinance. But the realtor, I understand, of the property has asked for Village Council to remove that restriction that exists in that 1991 ordinance. Since it was done by ordinance then, it can only be undone by ordinance now. So we will be bringing an ordinance for your consideration that just removes that language from this 1991 ordinance. You'll have the original 91 ordinance in your packet. I guess we'll do this bring it for first read at next meeting. And I can put together a memo for that packet as well that just runs through these details. But if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Heads up, that's coming.
So, so we're bringing an ordinance to repeal it. Does that mean?
We're not going to repeal the ordinance because the ordinance itself was for the sale of the land to Antioch. So this ordinance 91-01, needs to stay on the books. Can you keep it down over there, Judy? It needs to stay on the books. We're going to amend it, probably is the language that I will use, to remove that one bullet point out of one section of the ordinance.
Okay, but you're saying, I guess I'm just thinking, there are a lot of people who I know feel passionate about this.
100%.
We're working on it and looking into it. So
Sure.
does this mean we are considering it and that you're presenting here is what is being asked? What do you think about
So
it? Or is
this
it like
will have, that's a great point, Gavin, thank you. Yes, this will have no bearing on an actual rezoning of that property. This is the ask being made of council is to just strike this bullet point from this 1991 ordinance that says thou shalt never seek rezone, and as though it never existed, right? It'll be written off the books at that point. If they want the property rezoned, whoever they is, current, future owners, they will have to go through the rezoning process, which is, to apply through the village, go to planning commission, come to council. So this will not rezone the property or even allow for a rezone necessarily. It just gives them, it opens the window for their ability to apply. Is that what you're asking?
I think so. You obviously there's another parcel where there's been a bunch of discourse lately about this question of intent, and so I guess I would just say in terms of the memo, I hope it'll be sort of thorough in saying here is all of the information, because if we don't provide it, I think there'll be a lot of citizens that will come in and provide it. It's a really, I don't know if y'all have been following the letters to the editor and what's going on. There's a bunch of interesting questions around what do previous people mean to do, and how do we assess that? So anyway.
And to that end, and I'll mention this in the memo as well, in terms of what previous people did, because that's a very important and valid point, right? That the council of 1991 should not be rendered, to have not had any impact on this. However, the language did not end up in a deed restriction. And so in order for it to have been impactful in the future, it would have needed to be in some type of either deed restriction or contractual agreement, and it didn't, as far as we know, as far as anyone can find. It doesn't show up in either form. I to this day don't even understand how this ordinance came to light, because from a title search perspective, this would not have been found. But people are resourceful and find things, and now that we know about it, let's address it because the request has been made. So I can tee up the ordinance for council's consideration and explain all of this to you, but I just want to give you the heads up that it's coming, and you'll start to see it on your agenda as future agenda items.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And then you got your resolution to support issue 1, resolution of financial support for TLT, which we'll walk through what that looks like, and you may have a couple of different options on that. You've got a contract with the village mediation coordinator. That faithful performance of duty will come back, and then the rezoning and the final plat. You got a quite packed agenda.
And the resolution for Springfield.
Yeah, which I guess
Are we going to try to do that?
try to do that on the 25th.
Okay.
So we need to add that to them.
Yep, thank you. And then I have two things that I just don't want to be forgotten. I mentioned, I think, one of them at the last meeting is I still want clarity around what funds people can donate to. So I mentioned like utility roundup, we have some explicit policy that says you can. Affordable housing, when we had folks try to donate to that, we didn't think it was a good idea. And then we've got green space as well. So we have these funds. I know that funds have to be set up, by asking permission from whoever. I don't know all the details, but so I'd still like to talk about that at some point. It's not urgent. And then the second thing is just kind of related to bringing back the rec policy. I'd like to understand, so I had thrown out at the last meeting, can we set up a second fund so that, when we do those rec sales, 85% goes into one, 15% goes in the other. I'm imagining there are some issues around doing that, but I will be asking about that at the next meeting, so whatever input I can get. And I think part of that to me is, I know you can't, without court permission, move funds between different utilities. I wonder if is it the same thing with capital funds, that if we put 15% into one capital fund, would it be difficult to move it into the other one? So, but I want to know that. We don't have to talk about it tonight.
I'll be ready.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other future agenda items? All right, well then I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.